Welcome to the Ashurst Emerging Artist Prize talk series. It's our 6th year. We've done approximately about, 27 talks, 30 talks now, across a range of subjects that all aim to give you career development advice, whether you enter our prize or not. So you can come whether you want to enter or whether you just want to come down for the talk. So, on to this evening. What's wrong with art life? We've gone with a small topic to cover in an hour. Put the whole art world to right? I have faith. We have taken this evening, and the sort of title of this evening is inspired by one of our speakers' column, Tabish Khan. He's a London-based art critic who I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. We aim to talk about things that we find a bit wrong with the art world and how we can improve them, do better with them, and we hope along the way there's some tips on how you guys can take part in that too. To introduce the speakers joining Tabish, we've got Martha May Ronson. She is an artist coach, and we have got Irish artist Stephen Doyle, who also won the Ashurst Emerging Artist Prize in 2018. So Stephen, can we kick off with you, please?
Yes. I'm on. As Caitlin said, I'm Irish-based, so I practice in Cork at the minute, but I suppose my introduction to the art world was graduating from CIT, Cork College of Art and Design in Cork. And from there, I was lucky enough to receive a few things for my graduation show, which was a residency in a local artist space and for about 9 months. And I was also given the Student of the Year award, which meant that I got a solo show in the local gallery. And from there I entered a prize you might be familiar with, which is Ashurst Emerging Artist Prize. And things have kind of rolled on from there. In the next few weeks, I will have the first piece in the National Collection in Ireland to openly discuss queer culture, which is pretty cool. Happy with that one.
This is a bit of a round of applause. Yeah, I think it is.
And as you may have guessed by that, my work kind of pertains to queer identity, queer culture, through the figure and installation.
Thank you very much. Martha.
Hello, I'm Martha May Ronson. I'm an artist coach. I went to art school, so I studied fine art at Central St Martin's. And it was at Central St Martin's that in my second year, I couldn't afford to buy paints. All of my paintings were in one colour, they were all white. And so my tutor said to me, well, we can't be doing with that, I'll get you a job. So she got me a job at Camden Art Centre Cafe, and that's really how I started working in galleries. I started volunteering in the galleries upstairs. So I was invigilating, I loved being around the arts. I love talking to the visitors about the art. And it's really from there that's really sort of, I was on a sort of springboard down this kind of journey of working in art galleries. And so I was still studying at the time. I was invigilating at Hauser and Wirth, now getting paid. I got a full ride scholarship to study in the States for the painting that I was doing. So then I moved over to America, and I'm making my work, and I was just more interested in other people's work than my own. And so I then ventured to New York City by myself. I didn't know anyone, didn't have any money, and landed an internship at a gallery there, Hauser and Wirth again in New York City. So I worked in internships in galleries, two galleries in New York, moved back to London, and really, really struggled to find my way in the art world again. It was really, really difficult. I didn't know anyone. I felt like the friends who I had around me during my degree have just all moved back home. So I felt like I really had to start from scratch. So I decided to bring the art world to me, and that was through my Twitter account. And so I started my Twitter account posting about exhibitions that I was visiting in and around London, and that really helped me to show people my passion for contemporary art. And that's how I got a job in London in a contemporary art gallery. And so I worked in several galleries in London, up until working as a gallery director. And that's really kind of up to this point, really. And now I'm working as an artist coach and helping artists with their careers through one-on-one coaching and online courses as well. So,
what's your Twitter handle, please?
It's _Martha May.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have a look through. And last but not least, our muse for this evening, Tabish. You give us a little background, please.
Yes, of course. Hello. Thank you for joining us. It's an amazing turnout. So my name is Tabish Khan. I am the visual arts editor for Londonist and also a regular contributor to Fad magazine, where I have my weekly top 5 and my What's Wrong with Art column, which we'll come to in a short span. I don't really remember going to a museum apart from as a child. None of my family are interested in art. None of my friends are really that much. So I thought, what the hell, let's start going. So I started going and I thought, wow, this is something that I don't really understand or know, but I'm really intrigued by it. So I started going more and more, and I got a bit of a bug, and I was going to as many as I could see. And then one of my cousins said, well, you know, why don't you write a blog? This is when the blogs were still quite a new thing, right? So I thought, why not? So I started my own blog. And then I thought, well, how do I get my message out to a broader span of people? And at the time, there was a website called Londonist, which was completely volunteer-led. They didn't have any money to pay anyone. And I just said, well, you guys don't have an arts person. Do you want one? And they said, sure, we'll try you out. And I thought, the irony being Londonist is a professional outfit today, and they would never accept someone as amateur as I was back then. But, you know, the timing worked out right. And I've been there for coming up 9 years now, and now the very tube adverts that inspired me to start off my career now occasionally have a 4-star or 5-star Londonist on it, which is one of mine. So whenever I see one of those, it's a great moment of pride, because it feels like my career has come full circle, as it was. And maybe someone else will see one of those adverts and take the leap like I did and follow my path. So that's how I got into Londonist. And then for Fad magazine, I ran into Mark, who runs it, at an opening, and he suggested the top 5, which we did. And then we got talking about setting the art world to rights, and we're like, what's wrong with art? You know, me as someone who, from the outside, looks at the art world and goes, oh, there's a few things that I don't like about it. So that's how the column started, and what we're going to do is, obviously, we're going to talk about topics on that. But now I realise I'm stealing a bit of Caitlin's thunder, so I'm going to hand back to her.
I might have to cut that bit out where you said science was the real deal within 5 minutes of us starting an art talk. I realised I haven't introduced myself. I didn't do that, did I? I'm Caitlin. Hello. I'm one of 2 of us that run the Art Prize. I do all the marketing and I curate the events here. So, Tab, you're going to kick us off with the first one, which you've actually written a column on before as well. Talk to us about art speak and why it's wrong.
Yeah, so when we talk about art speak, we're talking about that kind of impenetrable language that we sometimes see surrounding art. So what I'm going to do is I'm not taking out my phone because I'm sending a tweet, but I am going to show you, I'm going to read to you because I can't remember this off the top of my head. So Richard Long is an artist who creates what's known as land art. So there's a work where he walked through a field, and the work is a photograph of the path he left through the field. So that's what the work is. A rather elegant and simple work. And this was displayed at Tate Britain in an exhibition about conceptual art. So this wasn't some obscure gallery. This was at Tate Britain. And this is what the wall text said about the work. I will take a breath to slow down, but there isn't very much punctuation in this. So their symmetrical, non-compositional, diagrammatic character was anathema to an understanding of a modernist compositional syntax that valued equality of presence over process.
It makes total sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
I'm lost.
Yeah. Now, for those of you wanting an English translation, I believe it's not what he did, it's the way he did it. And part of me thought, why couldn't you just say that? But we joke because we all see it. But the reason I wanted to raise it is that, so the way I think about it, look, I was new to art at one point, and I threw myself into it, and I really got into it, and I love it, and it's a career, right? Now, somebody may have seen a poster that said, Conceptual Art in Britain, that was the name of the exhibition, and thought, you know what, I've never really got into conceptual art. I am going to pay however much pound it was, maybe £14, and go see this exhibition and really get to grips with something I don't understand. Now, I can imagine that person reading that and then deciding, oh, conceptual art isn't for me because I don't understand what's going on here, therefore I'm done engaging with contemporary art. And that's what really saddens me. And in fact, my one-star review of that exhibition called it an unforgivable exhibition of conceptual art for that reason, because I don't want people to think art is not for them, because it isn't. You know, art is for everyone. Now, I'm not saying all art is for everyone. I'm not saying every single person can appreciate every single artwork in the world. I'm just saying there must be something. Because if somebody turned around to you and said, you know what, TV, it's not for me. How many of them are out there? There might be a few, granted, but there's not many, right? Because TV is such a broad spectrum. Same with books, right? And yet, with art, there's a lot of people who go, you know, there's a free gallery around the corner, free, mind you, and they're like, I'm not going to go. I mean, the stats show, I think it's something like 50% of people did not visit a gallery or a museum in the last year, right? Worse if you're, I think it's 43% for Asian, 33% for black people didn't visit a museum or a gallery. And you think, that's actually quite shocking, given that cinema, I think the number that visited was in the high 70s. And cinema's not free, you've got to pay for it, right? So it just saddens me that that's where we end up. So are you trying
to... It's a really good indicator of accessibility and approachability of art as the visual arts as an arts form is got certain elements that potentially are making it less approachable, and Art Speak's a good example of that. Stephen, Martha, thoughts? What do you think?
I mean, from my perspective, you know, you as an artist want to engage with as many people as possible. So why are you targeting the small amount of people who have at least a BA in art in some way? It seems quite silly to me.
Do you think it's targeting, or is it because we've got these stereotypes that we feel we need to work towards in the arts? As in, like we at the Art Prize, we see a lot of writing, a lot of applications. And sometimes it feels, you get the vibe that people are writing about their work to give it more weight, unnecessarily so. So do you think it's people trying to target a certain audience as an artist, or is it more that we're kind of stuck in this place where we feel we should be speaking that way?
Well, you know, there's like what first comes to mind is that like it's if you're overcomplicating the text, then the work wasn't strong enough to begin with. Like if you're trying to add on, I'm really smart, and if you don't get it, you're dumb. If you don't get the work, you don't get the work. I mean, like if it's not good enough, or not good enough, but like if it's not something that somebody engages with or doesn't like, they're entitled to that opinion. And you making them feel like they don't belong in the space or they shouldn't engage with the work is a wrong route to go around. I think you should engage with as many people as possible and take on what they have to say about it. If you don't like it, you can kind of go, okay, thanks for your opinion, goodbye.
Yeah, I actually see it from a different perspective. So rather than seeing it in a way that is kind of exclusive, and so when you read this text, you know, and you don't understand it, and you have an impact, you have a response to that, I almost feel like it is those writers who are using that language, almost kind of like to kind of amp up their own career, their own kind of, you know, their ego in a way.
Fair enough at times. But if actually you're then unintentionally making your audience smaller, then that's tricky. What do you guys think? Can we bin it? We need a Room 101 box, don't we? Can we bin Art Speak? If you're thinking of applying to the Art Prize, can you bin Art Speak? Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to move on to our next point. And this is one that you highlighted, Stephen. You were talking about buyers, but I've made it a little bit broader. And it's this belief that there's one correct pathway in the arts, that an artist will only be successful if they follow a set path of, say, art school and gallery representation, selling to particular people, being in certain collections. So can you talk us a little bit about, maybe it's through your process and your kind of past 2 years, because you've certainly ticked a few of the boxes that are a more traditional route, but also really not done.
Yeah, like I don't have like sole gallery representation anywhere. Like I have strong associations with 2 galleries in Ireland, one in Cork and one in Dublin. And because both of them have like a long list of artists that are associated with them, they're obviously limited to how many solo exhibitions they can have in a year. So if it's more than 12 artists associated with a gallery, you're not going to get a solo exhibition every year. So it's like, and if you're trying to sell your work through them, then you can't rely on that one gallery. So I think it's a great setup to have, in that, like, if anyone wants to buy your work, you can kind of go and kind of suggest to go through them and they can sell it, and that's great, but there's no obligation there, which I really like. I think it works for me. It allows me to kind of, I think the only rule really, that unspoken rule, is kind of for the Dublin gallery is to go to her in Dublin, and that's that area done. I can go anywhere else in Ireland, you know what I mean? So I think that's what works for me at the minute.
What less traditional sort of routes have you taken?
Like I went to art college, but I didn't do a master's. I was kind of, it seemed like everyone was doing it at the time to kind of further themselves or to kind of keep themselves going. Yeah. But I was just overloaded at the end of that BA. I needed to take time for myself, so I just kind of wanted to do the work. I was kind of happy enough to do it, so I just kept going. And I was given a solo exhibition, so I wasn't like in 6 months after finishing, so I felt a bit pressurized to do that. And then I realized that I'm not a good holiday taker. So it's really annoying that like my time off is spent in a studio, and that's what I work as. So it's a really weird anxiety loop. But it's.
Does anyone else know that anxiety loop? Yeah.
But that was my route essentially into, it's a perpetual wheel for me, that it's just to keep going and keeping yourself busy. But some people take time off to do whatever they want to do, get their life experience, to come back and make a new body of work, or it's really. Do
you feel like there's a pressure as an artist to tick certain boxes, to have a gallery, to have sold work, to be in a collection, all these kind of sound bites we hear and we're told as we're developing in the arts, to be working full-time as an artist? I always think that's a really harsh one if you're trying to be an artist. It's bloody hard work.
No,
to
you don't have
make
to
money.
do full-time. I think okay most people that I know do part-time. Like they work somewhere else, and then if they have scheduled like an art fair or an exhibition a few months down the line, they'll give themselves time to just focus on doing that. Or if they are happy doing commissions and doing those in the evenings and maybe working during the day, again, there's no one specific path. You figure out what works for you, just kind of go with that. But I just don't get but we do all have that expectation that, like, especially when you're starting out, that, okay, I need to have this by a certain time, otherwise I'm going to have to drop it and get a real job, and just leave it behind. That's
in my Room 101 bin. It is a real job to be an artist. It is a real job to work in the arts. You just call it a real job.
Dad. He's actually going to watch this, so yeah. He's been a big support, actually. So,
Martha, you work with artists, obviously one-on-one. Be really interesting to hear your thoughts on this.
To touch on a little bit more about what Stephen mentioned, don't feel afraid of taking time out of your career. Many artists feel that they have to just do it continuously. and that time in the studio is time dedicated to all their practice, and that's, that's going to make them essentially. It's the time outside of your studio that's really going to kind of feed your work, It's those holidays, it's that time out, it's that year after university where you went traveling. So take time out and don't feel that you have to just, be an artist straight after art school and just continue and get a gallery. And if you don't get a gallery, then that's it and you failed. That's really not how the world works. I mean, there's so many artists who are now, look at Rose Wiley. She's an artist, a female painter who's become very popular in recent years, and she's in the later stage of her life, for example. So don't feel that age has any factor in your success as being an artist. The last gallery that I was working for, the kind of average age of artists that we worked with was 40 years old. I think some artists think, if you're not picked up when you're young and emerging, emerging should mean a young 20-year-old, and if you're not picked up then you're not able to make it. That is not the case at all. Galleries don't kind of look at your age and see, well, they're young and fresh, so I'm going to get on them. Maybe maybe there are some galleries that are going to do that, but all galleries are different. And if you are looking for gallery representation, then you'll find the perfect fit, and that gallery is obviously not for you.
So if we're talking about this idea of a set pathway and that kind of maybe take from that give yourselves a break, I think is the general gist there. Where do you think, especially self-representing artists, because there's far more of those than there are represented, and I think what you said earlier about digital being a really powerful tool, it's really powerful for self-representing artists. It's changing an industry. Where else do you think a self-representing artist can be looking for opportunities that are maybe a bit more outside the box and not that traditional gallery, dare I say not that traditional prize? Probably shoot myself in the foot, sorry. Sorry to the person I wrote with. Where do we think we can be seeking out opportunities in a less traditional manner?
I have a few. Like, when I was going through college, it wasn't like we had a society kind of set up that was very general, but they gave funding to it every year, and I decided to join in my first, just get involved, whatever, meet people. But as second and third year here, I realized that we could do whatever the hell we wanted. So we could literally make an exhibition happen, and the college would pay for it, yet no one was doing that. So it's about kind of looking at where things can be found, and using those resources close to you. Like if your parents own a cafe, or if you own a cafe or whatever, you can put your artwork up there.
I think as well, I'd just like to add to that some artists feel as though by showing in a cafe that may affect their how they're perceived or their reputation. I will say that from my experience, especially if you're just starting out, it's better to say yes than to say no to opportunities. So make opportunities, and if opportunities come your way and you're still emerging, then say yes to that opportunity, because that's how the word about your work is going to spread, by showing and being present and showing up. Maybe you get into a situation where you feel like, well, I just feel like that space is not right for me, or that person isn't the right person to work with. In that instance, of course, say no. That's absolutely fine. But the more times you say yes, the more you learn from showing in different spaces. You'll encounter challenges along the way, and you'll learn how to work with other people. And it's also just a great way to expand your networks. So...
I'm going to move us on to the next point, but I very quickly want to hear, because you are our art critic and you are elusive and mysterious, none of us know how to approach an art critic. How do you feel about seeing work outside of a gallery setting? Do you approach it in a different way? What do your expectations change? What do you expect?
I think the expectations will change, obviously, based on the setting. I'm not discriminatory in the sense that it needs to be in an established gallery setting, but I am aware of there are certain, it's been recorded so I can't say, but there are certain publications who will not cover anything that isn't a traditional gallery setting. But as long as you know that, then you know not to approach them. I think that's fine. So that is, I suppose that's how I'd go about it. And in terms of me being elusive and approaching me, I think cash in envelopes works every single time.
Noted.
I do not take bribes, just to be clear. For the camera, don't take bribes.
I feel like we're going to have to edit a lot of you out, Tab. Inspired by, but not appearing in. So our next point is one from you, Martha, and I think this is another really interesting one for the elusive and mysterious gallery. How on earth do we approach a gallery? So something wrong with the art world. We don't know the role of galleries. We're not understanding the role of galleries, how they work with artists, how to approach them for representation. Is it even essential to have a gallery nowadays? So, Martha, lead us on this one. Talk to us a little bit more about this idea of us not understanding the role of galleries and how our individual artists can potentially learn and develop from that.
Yeah, of course. So firstly, I'll say that how the art world is developing, I believe that gallery representation isn't essential anymore. If you have a personal goal to gain gallery representation or be shown by an established gallery, then that is your personal goal. And if that's something that you're working towards, then that is great. But it really isn't the be and end all. All galleries are different, okay? So every single gallery operates in a completely different way. And something that a lot of artists don't consider, not all artists, but think about the gallerist more than the gallery. So if you are looking for gallery representation, rather than targeting the gallery, target the gallerist. It's the gallerist's name that is above their door, essentially. And so it's their personal baby, you know, they're the artist that they look after. And I think that there is this kind of disconnect between artists and galleries, and artists just simply do not know how to approach a gallery. And so having worked in galleries, we'd receive hundreds and hundreds of artist submissions. And I'll tell you this, most, if not all, commercial contemporary art galleries don't accept artist submissions. So if you do send an email to them with your portfolio and an artist statement and maybe your CV attached and you don't hear back, you know, you're almost setting yourself up for failure, and that can be really hurtful. You know, when you don't hear back from them and you've put all your hope into this email. The other thing I've found as well is that gallery representation, you know, there's so much more beneath that kind of term. Talking about different kinds of galleries, if you're a painter and you're cold emailing lots of different galleries, and you know one of the emails that you send is to a gallery that shows video art, then the gallerist is just going to think you haven't done your homework, you haven't done any research, and it really reflects, you know, quite, you know, not in a good light, really. So take the time to research the gallery, how long they've been operating, the artists that they work with, and then reach out to them on a personal level, be personal. A lot of artists will want to gain gallery representation, write an email and say, okay, I think you should represent me. Well, something that I often compare it with is asking someone to marry them before you've even gone on that first date. It really is like that. You kind of have to make that first point of contact. You've got to go to the gallery. You've got to meet them. Be their number one fan. Go to their openings. Show that you're interested. Start a conversation. And then you can say, I'm an artist. This is the work I'm making. You might be interested in it. Invite them to your studio and really build upon that relationship first.
We all need resilience in the arts. We really do. Do you feel there are ways that artists can build resilience with that, you know, with this idea of it's obviously a long-term goal, getting involved in the environment, but then still possibly having that thing where that email doesn't get answered or that doesn't happen? Is there a thing about longevity and resilience that we can be improving on?
Well, I mean, if you are in it for the long haul, then, and you're dedicated and you're wanting to get to that point, that is your goal, then you will be resilient. Please don't be discouraged by, what I've just said about approaching a gallery. I want to be as open and honest with you guys as much as possible. But it does take time. It is a relationship. It's a two-way thing. They want to see how you will be to work with, for example. So most galleries, before they go for that representation deal, they'd rather take a piece of your work and show it first and just see how their audience responds to your work.
Do you feel like self-led activities, like you're talking about, if there is an opportunity to exhibit in something like a cafe, don't turn it down unless it's really not the right fit, see it as an opportunity. Do you feel as a gallerist, especially as someone who's been a gallerist, all of that then adds into the moment when someone who approaches you does fit with your gallery? Would you look at that and go, well, they've been active, they've been working towards it? It wouldn't detract, it would add, is what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you can always tailor your CV. So you may see other artists on their CV, instead of saying, this is the entire list of all the exhibitions I've ever done, they'll often say selected exhibitions. So what I'm suggesting is, when you're in the early stages and you're creating a market for yourself, you should say yes to opportunities rather than no. Build up your experience, get to know how it works, so that when that gallery does approach you, you're like, you're hot on it. You know how to respond to emails. You know how to turn up on time. You know how to help with the install, because you've already put the work in. You've already got that experience.
Tab, I feel like you're itching to...
I was just going to say, one of the things they teach you in, not that they teach me, but obviously in negotiation, when you're talking to people about something, if you want someone to do something for you, then the question is, what can you offer them, right? So, for example, what are you doing to make them at ease and make them comfortable with you? So, I'll give you an example. If someone emails me and they want me to cover a show, and the first line in the email is, I love that review you wrote about X, I'm already in my happy place, right? I'm already thinking, this guy's great. I mean, hopefully you're being sincere and you're not lying.
Or you've just done your research, as Martha advised.
Yes, done your research. And that's the same with gallerists. So like when you go to, as Martha was pointing out, you go to a gallery opening, they don't want to hear straight away that you're pitching about your work. But if you start by saying you really like the show they've put on or the artist they're showing, then of course they're going to think positively of you the next time when they speak to you, and maybe then you're going to talk about your work. So it's that kind of, I think a lot of society is people trying to take from people, and there is that sort of give and take that you need to balance, and if you can get that right, then you build much more productive relationships.
Have you had to negotiate writing about certain galleries? Is that everything that comes up as a critic, where you have to build that relationship up to then be able to cover a particular exhibition or be invited to a press preview? Is that a negotiation that happens for you as a critic?
It's not a negotiation, but obviously it's it's helpful if somebody goes, I've got the private view on Thursday night. Now, if any of you have been to the opening of a gallery, I should point out, if there is no guest list, it's not a private view, it's an opening night. Please rephrase that. But if you go to an opening of a gallery, it's usually heaving, right? So if I want to see the work, that is not the best time to see it. So some people just go, come at a different time. Or if you want to come an hour early, it'll be ready. You can see it. And a lot of the professional commercial galleries do that. And that doesn't mean a small gallery can't do it, or your own exhibition, wherever you're showing. that's not something that's limited to the commercial galleries.
I actually think that's quite a good tool, and I don't know if you agree on this, Martha, is especially if you're doing something self-led or you're doing it as a group or a collective, you've got an exhibition on, see if you can reach out to people like Tabish and actually book them in for a time.
I'm going to get a lot of emails, aren't I?
Yeah, sorry. Be kind in them. And actually pin them in for a time. Instead of just going, we're doing a press opening from 1 till 4, go, hey, we'd love you to come and have a look. Let us know when's convenient for you. We'll be there to meet you. Then you're kind of getting a bit more confirmation that it's actually a meeting. It's not a show up if you like. And I think that's sometimes a nicer technique.
Yeah, so that always makes me think of Damien Hirst and his Freeze exhibition. So if anyone doesn't know the story, he had an exhibition, a very famous exhibition in the 90s called Freeze, a different spelling from the art fair, where he got all of the top collectors in London to his show by sending cabs to collect them up. So maybe it cost like a little bit of money to get the people to come to his show, but ultimately he got those people to come to his show. And that massively benefited his career, you know, and people still talk about that today. A phrase that I hear quite a bit is, well, in the emails that I receive from artists, is if you have time or if you're in the area, don't say that. You know, if you want them to come, just give them a reason to come. And be really personable to that person and say, look, I'd really appreciate it if you come. They want to feel special. They want to feel like you are only inviting this one person. And that's how those people are going to come to your show.
Very nice. So I'm going to move us on to our last point before we do some questions, if that's all right with you guys. The last point, it's a big one. The belief that it isn't possible to make a living as an artist. Now, Martha, that's one of yours. Stephen, I kind of want you to kick it off, though, and you can be as open or non-open about that. That's completely your call. Do you agree?
Well, yes and no. It's a bit like the Hunger Games at times. So, I mean, you're kind of like every year it feels like you're competing against the new graduating year and you have to fight them for the limited funding and available gallery spaces in the area. So it can feel a bit intimidating at times.
And you grab the paintbrush from the middle.
Yeah, and you just kick over their
weapons.
sculpture when they're putting it up, you know, that kind of stuff. But it is possible. I think the most important thing that you know, you get what you put into it, and if you want to live as an artist full time, then do that. You know, you're not going to get very far by investing very little into it. So if you really want to be an artist, act like one. Like, put the work in, do the research, and just enjoy it, because otherwise no one else is, and it'll come off. So.
But I guess still within your parameters of what time and actual physical resources, you know, the monetary resource, what's there, use it well.
Yeah, like, I mean, everyone will have something that they can utilize, whether it's space or, you know, if you're very, you know, working, like I worked all the way through college, so I was saving up for my graduate show, so I had as much money as I possibly could spend on it. Because I wanted to have something that I was proud of, even if it was my last exhibition, or I didn't get any, or no one gave me any award or any kind of like residency, that I'd at least kind of go, I'm happy, I did a good job of that, and I can move on. But like, if you're not giving it your all for when it counts, then you'll just be disappointed in yourself more than anything. So I think you just need to kind of, you know, grow tough skin and just kind of, like, there's actually a mantra that I heard a few months back that actually really helps me kind of like continue going into studio. It's from an artist in Ireland called Blind Boy. I think he has a BBC series, actually. You should check it out. But it's, you know, no one else is better than me, I'm better than no one else. So, like, if you see artists who do graduate the same year as you, you know, you can't go, well, they got it because of this and I don't have that. It's, you know, yeah, exactly. I mean, you've just got to remember that you can only do as good as you can do, and that's it.
Can I ask you a potentially crass question, because we are British? What has been the most lucrative thing you've done? What's made you the most money? You don't have to answer it if you don't feel comfortable.
Let me think. It was somewhere between the graduate show or the Ashurst show, I think. I'll have to reference my finances.
I mean, we can say the Ashurst show, just,
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I'm in good company for that, to say it now. But I think, I like everything I make goes straight back into materials, renting studio, transport, framing, whatever it needs. So, like, I don't exactly have a lot of social nights out, so this is great. I don't spend a lot of money on things that I don't really need. It's just kind of prioritizing, I suppose. If you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen.
Martha, this is your point, so off the back of that, take the lead.
Oh, I have a lot to say about this. First, I agree with Stephen in that it's about the work that you put in. That is what you will get out of it. Treat your studio practice as it is a job. So be dedicated. Get up at the same time every morning and put time in the studio. I definitely believe that any artist can make a living as an artist, like any artist. All of you in this room, I believe that. And I believe that it's your limitations, your personal limitations, that are actually stopping you from doing that. So instead of asking the question, can an artist make a living being an artist? I think the question should be, why are you, if you are not making a living as an artist, why aren't you? And I think it comes down to these two things. The first one being belief. So your mind will respond to beliefs that you have in your mind. And so if you don't believe that you're able to make a living as an artist, the way that your mind works, it will just shut down that idea altogether before you even begin to try. And then my second point is the know-how. Knowing how to simply make money as being an artist. And that's something that they don't teach in art schools. They don't teach, do they?
No, like I think, there should be at least half or a full semester devoted to, professional practice of like, this is exactly how you apply for funding, these are the avenues you go down, that kind of thing, because if you're a really good artist and, everyone thinks you're amazing, and you probably are, but if no one's coming to see you or you don't know how to get your voice out there, then it's that kind of tree falling in the woods kind of proverb.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the art, that's the hard part. Learn how to promote yourself. Learn how to sell work. Learn how to crack the algorithms on Instagram. All of these things are skills that can be learned. You can pick up books in the library or watch YouTube channels to learn how to do all of these things. So my advice is take the initiative and self-educate yourself beyond art school.
Do you feel we have perhaps a narrower idea of how we can make money in the arts, or how you can make money as an artist?
Yes, absolutely. And yes, think outside the box. So beyond funding and beyond selling work through a gallery, sell work through Instagram, sell work through emails, talk to the man who stood next to you at the bus stop about art. Those are the people who you're going to sell art to. Write a book about the technique that you use most in your artwork. That is part of your practice. There's exhibitions. There's so many ways that you can not just sell art, but make money through your art practice.
When we first started these talks, we did the first one, there was like 16 people at it, and we thought we were great. And now there's a lot more of you. And we're scared. No, I'm joking. But there's some guys there, they got in touch either last year or the year before, and they said, by the way, we met at your first talk, we started a collective, we're doing an exhibition, do you want to come down? Amazing. That for me was total thinking outside the box. They just got chatting at an event, knowing obviously that most of your artists in the room had got together and had found a solution to show their work together. And I just think that's really, that was really cool. That was probably one of the coolest things that's come out of 6 years there.
Yeah, and brand collaborations is massive. I mean, so many companies now want to work with artists. And that's why I think Instagram's such a great tool, because that's how big brands find artists, through Instagram. So don't feel as though making your work in your studio is kind of, you know, that's the products that you're going to sell. Think beyond that. Work with other people, like Caitlin said, collaborate.
And just kind of going off the networking thing, because I think that there's one thing that I picked up over the years that's really helped me, is that, like, even if you show up to an exhibition that's nothing to do with you or anything, but you know the artist there and you're really interested in them, or the gallery owner, literally talk at them for ages about how much you're enjoying the exhibition. Eventually they will ask you who the hell you are, and you know what you're doing, what you're so interested in, and then that gives you kind of a platform to go.
Are you just wearing people down?
Yeah, that is my plan. It's just like, oh, this is amazing, tell me about this, and there's only so long someone can talk about themselves for before they go, who are you again?
Thanks, Stephen.
I like this idea of gallery representation by erosion. Yeah. You know? But I was just going to add on that point we made about making money, which is, I don't like the fact that there's this bizarre belief in the art world that the word commercial is a dirty word.
Oh, yeah.
This idea
Agreed.
that, like, if you make money, you've betrayed your art. I mean, that's complete
Or you're
nonsense.
selling your soul.
I know.
Sell it. You make money and you can live making more art. I think it's...
like I always joke about my corporate day job. It's like, I may have sold my soul to a corporate, but it turns out my soul's worth a bit of money, right? But that's not what I'm advocating. All I'm saying is that when you're putting your work out there and you're selling, that's a success. You should never see it as a downside. That is you putting faith in yourself and it delivering. That is something to celebrate and be thankful for.
We're going to take some questions if you've got them. Conrad, the other half of the prize, is going to run around with a microphone. Oh, hello.
Hello. Thank you. Fantastic panel. I wanted to ask you, what's your point of view on the gallery, how the gallery is moving now with online galleries? There seems to be more and more online galleries. What is your thought on that?
My thoughts are that if it's working, that's great. There's a reason why a lot of galleries are opening spaces online. It's because most emerging contemporary art galleries actually run at a loss. So art galleries are extremely expensive to run. And so if they have strong artists that they're working with and they're able to match the artworks to collectors through the internet, then that's great. So I think it's a positive thing, the way that we're moving. Yes, I still think it's great to have galleries that we can walk into and we can experience the work for ourselves and in real life. But I think, yes, I'm very pro-digital and pro-online.
I would be as well, but I wouldn't I wouldn't post work. Like, if I want everything to go into an exhibition, per se, I wouldn't put it on an online gallery first. I want to get people to come and see it in person first, so I would rather have it in a gallery space or just an open space for people to come and see it, and then post or put older work on an online gallery, because at least then it's open to a wider audience after the fact, and it gives people a chance to kind of purchase older work then, whereas otherwise it would just be sitting in my studio taking up space. So that's the way I'd approach it.
Should we do another question?
Martha in particular talked about the ways in which you can get your work out there. She mentioned interning as one of her original routes into the art world, much of which is unpaid, I have to say, in my experience. But in attempting to associate yourself with brands or plenty of companies who would look for artists that they want to be associated with, that they think it's hip, I'd like to ask the team to give one instance of something that it isn't advisable to do, because I have heard from a few artists, and have had a kick in the teeth myself, of you trying to associate yourself with something, and in fact they take advantage of you, and you never get paid, and you're expected to do the work for nothing, or share with them for nothing.
I think it's really important to have clarity from the beginning, so don't be afraid to ask for an agreement or a contract. That would be my one point. And also don't be afraid to set out your own terms. It has to work for you. So yeah, contract or agreement, and make sure your own terms are included within it.
Yeah, I would even say that if you're signing a contract's a legal document. Now, sometimes it costs to get a lawyer to look over it, but that can help out in the long run, because I'm not a legal expert, so I'm not going to know what the contract actually means what happens if X or Y or Z happens. So that's also helpful.
There's a platform called ArtQuest that also run Art Law. Am I getting that right? Does that ring a bell? Is that right? Their art law advice online is really great. And I also believe that there's AN Network offers that kind of support. So there are organisations that offer sort of reasonably priced support within legal sort of the legal realm for art.
If they refuse the contract and say we'll sort that out at a later stage, what do you do then?
It's really, I mean, I'd say that's your call if you feel comfortable moving forwards, if you trust them. But personally, in a commercial realm, in commercial photography, we wouldn't do anything without a contract and a really detailed contract that's agreed by everyone. So definitely up to you, but I wouldn't do anything you're not comfortable with without a contract in place. And don't be afraid to ask for that. It's your work. That's what they want. As Martha says, you've got the USP that they want to associate with. You're not doing them a favour. You've worked hard on it.
Yes.
Don't be afraid on that.
Sorry, Caitlin. I was just going to say set the terms, so be the one to lead. So rather than, if a brand does approach you for a collaboration, rather than saying, well, what do you want from me? How shall I adhere to your terms? You simply say to them, these are my fees, this is my fee, and I expect 50% up front. And also, I'd like to add, is I wouldn't try not to get discouraged by stories you may have heard in the art world about people being stung by galleries or people not being paid on time by big brands, because that can limit you yourself, and that can stop you from working with people altogether. So be positive and go in there with a positive mindset, and set the terms.
Cool. So we'll do our last question. Who had their aha?
Sorry, this is actually not really a question. I just wanted to say something about as an artist, you can feel like, going back to what Martha was saying about belief in yourself, which is really imperative. It's about the support network that you have around you. And that doesn't necessarily just mean artists. That means family, that means friends, that means also educating each other and getting opinions from each other. But that is actually something that will see you through, whether you're in it for the short haul or the long haul. And I think it's really important, because it's not just about being in a collective, it's about creating a support network, and that is really helpful in itself. And that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome point to finish on. And you're surrounded by other artists and arts professionals, and one thing I would say is having like a sort of diverse group around you is really helpful. I don't just hang out with other marketeers. That would be really boring. I totally agree with you. It's a lovely point to finish on. I'm going to ask our speakers for a top tip each, please. And please tell our audience where we can find you online or in person if you're feeling bold.
So if you want to look for me online, it's at Stephen Doyle Art with a PH. I should be all on Instagram, mostly Instagram, and you can find my website and stuff through that. And top tip, I don't know, I think, do what you can do and be happy with it, and try not to compare yourself all the time to somebody else. I think that's the thing that I kind of deal with the most, and that like you see other people doing well and you kind of feel like you're behind, and you can just realize, just
take a step back and realize that you're doing what you can, and that's all that can be expected of you, really?
Martha? I would say be authentic, be true to yourself, and take the initiative to educate yourself, and beyond art school, and in areas where you know nothing about. Learn about money, learn about finance, learn about how to document your artwork and how to create an inventory. So educate yourself. You can find me online at marthamayronson.com. You will find me most on Twitter, which is @_Martha May, and I'm on Instagram, which is @Martha May. If you want my email address, just come and see me at the end and I'll give you a card.
My website is tabish-khan.com. My Twitter and Instagram is London Art Critic, which is very descriptive of what I do. So in terms of tips, I would say, I'd reiterate something I said earlier, which was that, take some risks, calculated risks. Reach out to people, try things. Not all of them are going to work, right? It's not guaranteed. It's just like life. Not everything's going to work, but it's better to have tried and seen where that's taken you. And obviously a personal vendetta, bin the art speak, because as the great physicist Richard Feynman once said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you don't understand it.
A huge thank you to our speakers here. A special thank you for Tab for letting us take his column and bring it to you live. If you're thinking of entering, 19th is the deadline, and it's two of us that run the whole thing, so if you drop us a message afterwards, we'll pick it up. Thank you so much for coming. Please enjoy our free drinks.